welcome. My name is Brett Provenzano. I am the superintendent of the Fairport Central School District. The Fairport Central School District is joining districts across entire New York State to celebrate School Boards Month. This year's New York State School Board Recognition Week is this week, October 17th to the 21st, and it's a time to promote awareness and understanding of the important functions of our Board of Educations. We usually do a bright spot. Well, one of our bright spots tonight is our focus on our Board of Education, and I truly mean that. Our board members give generously of their time. They're thinking about our schools when no one else is thinking about our schools and everything that needs to occur to make learning at its very best. School Board Recognition Week is an opportunity to raise, again, awareness. Our board sets the direction for our school district relative to our educational programming, our facilities planning, and fiscal responsibility. In fact, those who follow us closely know that they have high expectations for a strategic plan. Within that strategic plan, there's accountability measures. Board members set the pace, set the expectations to be accountable to student growth and success in meeting students where they are. They develop a budget that prioritizes resources and meets our students' needs and the high expectations of our communities. And most of all, and one of the things I'm very proud of, our board supports a healthy school district culture. Anyone who went out to our pep rally a couple weeks ago saw that in full force. There's lots of love, there's lots of community spirit, and it starts with our Board of Education. We are proud and honored to celebrate Board of Education, our Fairport Board of Education. Let's give a big round of applause. We have a full night, and we're looking forward to seeing our students come up with our PTA reps and our administrators. But right off the bat, we're going to start off with our proclamation. We're going to ask our Jefferson Avenue team to come up. I think Mr. Charno is here, and I think he's got Mrs. Busby and a team which he will introduce. So, Mr. Charno, jump up here. You know how to do the mic? Proclamation first. Yeah, that's right. You set me straight, Mr. Charno. You got to do the proclamation first.
All right, Superintendent Provenzano and Fairport Board of Education, we are proud to be here again. Ryan Charno, proud principal of Jefferson Avenue, here with a number of my collaborative partners that I will let introduce us this evening, as we had the privilege of starting the night off with the proclamation. So again, Ryan Charno, proud principal at Jefferson Avenue.
I'm Amy Busby, the assistant principal at Jefferson Avenue.
My name is Lily Mitchell. My name is Oliver Mason.
Hi, Erica Santoro, lead teacher at Jefferson Avenue.
I'm Stephanie Evans, this year's PTA president.
And our special deliverer is Sammy Santoro, who is a first grader at Jefferson Avenue. Thanks, Sam.
Dance royalty, yes. JA's theme this year is Connections. It is with gratitude and appreciation that we recognize the members of the Fairport Board of Education for all that you do to help build connections between the students, teachers, and families at JA and all of the Fairport schools.
Whereas the Fairport Board of Education supports its educational professionals and believes in their ability to educate Fairport children in the best way possible, and
Whereas the Board of Education works with its educators to provide an environment where each child can grow in his or her desire to learn, create, and solve problems. And
Whereas the Board of Education works to cultivate healthy, caring, and critical thinkers who participate in and contribute to society, and
Whereas the Fairport Board of Education works on behalf of the Fairport community and promotes its values and beliefs, and
whereas the members of the Fairport Board of Education voluntarily accept the previously mentioned responsibilities.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the people of Jefferson Avenue School, along with the other Fairport school communities, do hereby proclaim October 2022 as School Board Appreciation Month in Fairport, New York. We encourage all citizens to publicly and privately thank the school board members for their service. And again, from the JA Jaguars and all of the Fairport schools and community, thank you so much for your service and happy Board of Education Month. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Charno and Mrs. Busby and the JA team. And so it is the proclamation, and to continue with our celebration, as we do every year, closing into my almost 20th year here, we've always honored our board members on this day and given library books in their name. And I know that they're looking forward to the presenters to come forward. We're going to start off because I understand there might be some dance lessons at stake here. So we're going to have Mr. Monticelli come up to recognize Janice Fortuna with a very special student honoree, Katie Fortuna.
Good evening. Pardon me. Good evening, everybody. Dominic Monticelli, the very, very proud principal of Minerva DeLand, joined here with by a fantastic freshman, Mrs. Katie Fortuna. Thank you for joining me. I'm a little nervous, so thank you for being my moral support here. I just want to send a wholehearted thank you to all of you for all you do. We're going to focus again on Janice right now. Quick story on Janice. The first time we met, it was after the freshman orientation a few months ago. It was an auditorium filled with spirited freshmen getting ready for the year. And they're great kids and they're settling in nicely, but I had to reframe expectations for the entire auditorium momentarily. Afterwards, Janice was, of course, there because she's very supportive of our children and our schools. And she looked at me and said, I don't know how you do it. I mean, freshmen, it's just really, really tough. And she said it with admiration, gratitude, and sympathy. And she said it like a true educator. She has experience in the elementary level and the collegiate level. So just not working with that age group, she just said it like a true educator. And I say the same things back to you, Janice. I don't know how you do it. With sincere gratitude, sympathy, and admiration. So thank you for all you do for our children, our community, and our schools. We can focus on just taking care of kids because of all of your support. So thank you all for all that you do every day. We have a book to dedicate to you. I'll stop talking in a minute, I promise. Katie's chomping at the bit here. We have a book to dedicate in your honor going into our library that students can read forevermore at Minerva DeLand. So the book is called A Refugee Story, American Shoes, and it's really fascinating. I haven't read it yet, but I look forward to. So what we discovered from you, that you love stories of resilience, hope, and love, and that's what this book embodies. And I think that embodies a lot of with the work that you all do. So we want to thank you again, and I'll turn it over to who you really came here to listen to. So Katie.
Thank you. Hello everyone. My name is Katie Fortuna, and I am here on behalf of our Fairport community in my class of 2026. I've been given this privilege to award and recognize our newest board member, Janice Fortuna. The people sitting alongside my mom have worked hard for our community in order to connect on a personal level with all staff and students. The 7 board members volunteered their time to help our Fairport family thrive while creating a safe and welcome environment for all students to learn. My mom, Janice, has been there every step of the way for me. She was there to teach me how to ride my bike, watched all my orchestra concerts, provided support alongside me when I was during my worst moments, but was also there for me during my best moments of my life. In a way, our school board is our community's backbone, similar to how my mom is my backbone. And for that reason, I know the Fcsd staff are so grateful to have her on our school board. Besides the fact that I got many of my traits from my dad, I got some of my mom's best qualities. These include her resilience, respect, responsibility, organization, and her amazing heart. The point is, my mom got to where she is now because she truly cares and will help you be the best version of yourself. Now, I might have just gotten taller than her, but she'll always be my mom and someone I will always look up to. Thank you.
Could stand back to back, please. It's really impressive when our students, and they continually will refer to the Fairport family. And I think that's, again, a credit to our Board of Education, their expectations that we are united, that we are a family, that we stay connected. I'm really proud to hear that and see that play out daily. Right now, I'm just very interested to hear the Dudley crew, because you got a ukulele here. I'm going to ask Jamie Naple and Caitlin Outlaw to come forward along with the Dudley team and do some introductions. Look at this.
Okay, we're gonna face the board. Okay, can wave. Okay. I'm Jamie Naple, the principal of Dudley. We're gonna go through introductions in just a minute, but I wanted to say a few words. It is an absolute honor to say thank you to the Board of Education members for all they do for Fairport Central School District. Our Dudley Dragons will sing the Dudley Dragon song for you, and it kind of goes in the theme of family, and once a dragon, always a dragon. And we are honoring Dr. Mary Caitlin White. And in addition, our school community, along with the PTA, donated a library book to the school collection titled All Are Welcome by Alexandra Penfold on behalf of Mary Caitlin White. This book was chosen because of her belief in equitable opportunities and access to a supportive and high-quality education for all students. She advocates for every child to have a sense of belonging. Once a dragon, always a dragon. Okay, Caitlin, you want to introduce yourself? Our ukulele player.
And I'm Megan Condello. I'm the PTA president at Dudley this year, and I'm just going to introduce all of our kids here tonight. We have students from Mrs. Keeney's class, Mrs. Stamp, Mrs. Doran, Mrs. Mazak, Mrs. Grace, Mrs. Wright, and Mrs. Wright is actually here tonight, and Mrs. Murphy and Mrs. Pepper.
Another board member over here.
And Jen's here, and actually Lindsay's over there too. Kids, if you just want to wave your hand when I say your name, okay? So we have Eleanor White, Noah Wright, Rose Condello, Eleanor Condello, Amelia Condello, Maggie Haskins, Nate Haskins, Parker Jeffrey, Aaron Laborde, Maggie Burke, Lucas Gates, Lila Coyle, Chelsea Bell, Jocelyn Reyes, Eleanor Hardy, Grace Solt, and Stella Mathis. All right, and they're going to sing your song for you.
All right, you ready?
We are the dragons, the Dudley School Dragons. We stand together with our Fairport family. Every day we try our best and we have only one request. Dudley Dragons, be a star. I am a dragon, a Dudley School Dragon. I stay safe wherever I may go. I treat others kindly and I act responsibly. Dudley Dragons, be a star.
In the name of your title, we should share the title. Thank you. Great job. Let's give it up for our Dudley team and family, please. Wow, who's going to go and follow that? I can't think of a better school or a better educational leader than Mr. Pat Groh. Why don't you come forward, Mr. Groh, who's recognizing Mr. Forsgren. You'll be coming up with a couple students who you'll introduce. Mr. Groh. He'll tell some jokes.
Thanks, but I have no jokes. That was great by those guys right there, and I knew you were going to call us up after that one. So, no, they were awesome. So, thanks for having us. So, tonight, thanks for Brett and certainly our board for having us here today. Both myself, Ms. Ferrando, our PTSA, and all our students at JP are pleased to honor, recognize, and thank Mr. Forsgren this evening. And we're thankful for all the work he and the rest of the board does for our whole our whole educational community, and certainly our families at JP. I'd like to introduce three of our students who are here to talk that can really run our program for us. We've got Riley, Finley, and Noah.
Thank you for having us here tonight and on behalf of the students at JP. Thanks to the Board of Education for all of their work and support of us students. The book we want to present to Mr. Forsgren is called The Secret Battle of Evan Powell. Here's a short description of the book of the award-winning author Wendy Wan Longshan. A fresh start. That's all Evan Powell wanted as he, along with his mother and sister, flee from California to Haddington, Virginia, hoping to keep his father's identity a secret.
But Haddington is a southern town steeped in tradition, and although Evan quickly makes friends, one boy seems determined to make sure that Evan feels that he does not belong. When Evan finds a unique way to make himself part of the school's annual Civil War celebration, the reaction is swift and intense. As all of his choices at home and at school collide, Evan must decide whether he will react with the same cruelty shown to him or choose a different path.
Wendy Wong Ching, the critically acclaimed author, weaves a timely and deeply moving portrait of all the secret battles Evan must fight as he struggles to figure out how he fits into this country's past and how he will shape its future. Again, all of us at JP want to say thank you to Mr. Forsgren and the rest of the Board of Education for all you do. We hope that you enjoy the rest of School Board Recognition Week and have a wonderful year.
Thank you, Mr. Groh and the JP team. I would like to ask our Brooks Hill friends to come forward. I think Mrs. Cluse is here. She'll be recognizing Mrs. Cardona. This is her forever home at Brooks Hill, so I know she's excited to be recognized by Brooks Hill. And I think there's a PTA rep. No? Okay. Okay. You're all by yourself. That's okay.
I can explain.
No worries. No.
My assistant principal, Stacy Miller, earlier was here for her tenure ceremony, which is a nice honor for her. She's now with the PTA, as there is a PTA meeting a little bit later this evening, so I don't have any PTA or my assistant principal, but I do have three lovely fifth grade children who I'm really proud of. So good evening. On behalf of the staff, students, PTA, and entire Brooks Hill school community, we would like to formally recognize Mrs. Marty Cardona this evening. We appreciate Mrs. Cardona's dedication and commitment to the Fairport school community and specifically Brooks Hill School. From the many hats that Mrs. Cardona currently wears and has worn in the past, Brooks Hill has been significantly impacted. Her love of children and education is apparent in all she does. Tonight, I have with me fifth graders Jameer Joseph, Nathan Gorefsky, and Fanula Ahern representing Brooks Hill School, and I'll turn it over to them at this time.
Brooks Hill School would like to thank Mrs. Cardona for helping Fairport students, staff, and administrators. She is a very caring person, and tonight we are pleased to recognize her. We have chosen a book in her honor that will be donated to the Brooks Hill School Library for all students to enjoy.
One thing we know about Mrs. Cardona is that she wants to make sure that every Fairport student feels like they belong. We know that how we treat each other is important and can make a difference in someone's day. We chose a book that would reinforce these important ideas.
The book is called What Are Words Really? The book reminds us that words can have magical powers. It also reminds us that words can have powers, such as the power to hurt or to heal. We need to remember to choose our words carefully to make the world a better place. We know Mrs. Cardona would want us to choose words to show others how much we care. Thank you, Mrs. Cardona, for helping to make our Fairport experience a positive one.
so we have a picture book that's called What Are Words Really? We'll present to you and you can take a peek at it, and when you're done, it will return to our library. Thank you so much.
That's a great depiction. Belonging, connectivity, using words to heal, to unite. That is Marty Cardona. Fairport High School is up on the docket next. Fairport High School will be recognizing Erica Bellows-Pacer will be honored, and Mr. Clark and Kristen Caraccio, PTSA rep, is coming up here, and I think there's a special guest that I'll let Mr. Clark introduce.
So we didn't have to go last, Natalie. I told her we'd have to
That
follow
would
a
be
lot of the
nice.
cuteness.
Flipping it up.
So, I know Mr. Monticelli stole about 2 minutes of our time, so I'm going to try to go a little faster. I'm really honored to be here tonight and want to take the opportunity to thank the entire Board of Education for all of your support, as well as our district leadership to do the things that we do. I know that comes from a source of love for kids and doing what's best for kids. My favorite part about doing this process is actually talking with, if we have the opportunity to have a relative of one of our board members, talk to them about what are the things that they're passionate about. And so our theme this year at Fairport High School is a sense of belonging. And so here with me this evening is our PTSA president, Kristen Caraccio, and your daughter, Natalie, to talk about the book that we've selected, which I think speaks to your values. And I'm going to let her talk about that. Thank you.
I picked this book, Underestimate, an Autism Miracle by J.B. and Jamison Hadley, to recognize my mom, Erica Bellows-Pacer. The main character, Jamison, is a person with autism who struggles and communicates his thoughts, feelings, and perspectives. Underestimate in Autism Miracle is the story of Jamison's journey to find a method of communication that allowed him to show the world that he was a wise and kind and complex individual who had been misunderstood and underestimated by everyone in his life. The book begins with Jamison's father's voice and describes the complicated emotions of both excitement and pain that accompany Jamison's journey to communicate. Once Jamison's extraordinary story has been told, Jamison takes over to share the story from his perspective. The book allows the world to hear from someone who many had dismissed and cast aside as incapable. Jamison's transformation challenges the stereotypes surrounding autism, a disability impacting 1 in 36 Americans. The book also causes you to think, is it possible that experts are wrong about several million people? Are all the non-speakers like Jamison? Underestimate an Autism Miracle inspires readers and reminds people about the power of love. It leads the reader to ask tough questions about how many more people with autism might be waiting for their chance to be freed from their prison of silence, too. And for the millions of parents of children like Jamison, the book describes a communication method that may give people with autism back their voice. I chose this book because my mom works with people in schools across the country to train and provide resources to help people working with people with disabilities and prepare them for employment. My mom chose her job because she likes helping people and she wants to make a difference in people's lives. Thanks, Mom, for what you do and how you help all students at Fairport Central Schools feel loved and cared for.
I just wanted to say this is my 17th year with students in the district. I had to get out my calculator to figure out what that really was. But just thank you very much for all that you do for our kids and making us all feel like a family. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Great job. Very, very heartfelt and soulful reflection on your mom. We'd like, I believe, Erin Moretter to come up, principal of Northside School, who will be talking and paying tribute to Joyce Kostick.
Great. Good evening. I'm Erin Moretter, the principal at Northside, and I'm joined by Jeremy Slack, our assistant principal. On behalf of Team Northside, a heartfelt thank you to every single one of the board members for everything that you do to support all of our schools. Jeremy and I are really excited to be joined by two Northside heroes this evening, properly decked out in Northside gear. Fifth grader Corinne Gallinger and fourth grader Garrett Carr, who are going to honor Mrs. Joyce Kostick.
It is our honor and privilege to recognize Miss Joy Kostick. During her time on the board, Miss Kostick has demonstrated her support for children and her love for our community. She is a champion for all students, especially the youngest learners in our buildings. We are grateful for her service and we are proud to dedicate these two books to her. The first book we selected was The Smart Cookie by Jerry John and Pete Oswald. In this book, the cookie learns that perfect scores and having all the answers aren't the only ingredients for intelligence. A quote in the book by Cookie sounds to us like something Miss Kostick might say. The quote is, "You don't have to have the answers to every question or suddenly be great at everything all at once. You just need a chance to try all kinds of things to find out who you are and what you would like to do." The second book we selected is Speak Up by Miranda Paul. Mrs. Moretta and Mr. Slack read this book to the third grade classes this year. This book follows a group of students who discover there are so many different ways to speak up and make their voices heard, from shouting out gratitude for a special treat to challenging a rule that isn't fair. These young students show how simple, everyday actions can help others and to make the world a better place. Ms. Kostick, we thank you for your work supporting the students, educators, and families in the Fairport Central School District. We appreciate your advocacy, your support, and genuine care for all of us.
Karen and Garrett, great job sharing what's important to Mrs. Kostick. Yes, opportunities, getting to know yourself, developing your voice. That is definitely a passion of Mrs. Kostick. Last but definitely not least, we have our friends from Martha Brown Middle School coming up. Dr. Brian Moritz will be the honoree. I think Rebecca Short, building principal, is coming forward, and I think Stacia Liu, PTSA president, will be introducing some of our students who will be helping with the honoring of Dr. Moritz.
Good evening. Thank you to the Board of Education and Mr. Provenzano for allowing us to present to the school board during School Board Appreciation Week. It's our honor and privilege to recognize Dr. Brian Moritz. His work on the board has supported staff, students, and building administrators at Martha Brown. Dr. Moritz, we thank you for your advocacy as well as your overall love for students in this community. I'm joined today by PTSA President Stacia Liu and our 7th grade students and board children, Elena Moritz and Allie Fortuna.
Good evening. This year, Martha Brown has the honor of recognizing board member Brian Mortez for his dedication and commitment to the Fairport School District. Mr. Mortez willingly gives countless hours of his personal time working with other Board of Education members like my mom to ensure each and every student in the Fairport School District receives the best education possible. On behalf of the Martha Brown Middle School PTSA, we would like to present this small token of appreciation to my dad. It is a book entitled The National Parks, Discover All 62 National Parks of the United States. This travel guide for kids will highlight the diverse beauty and wonder of the USA's most beautiful natural spaces. We chose this book because I really enjoyed researching a national park last year, and our family had the amazing opportunity to visit 6 national parks on vacation last summer. I hope this book will inspire more students to travel.
Again, thank you for all that you do and the opportunity to present this to you.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Ellie. Great job. To all of our students and staff and PTA, please let's give them a big round of applause for their great job. Ukulele was once again a hit. I really just think it's important to recognize these are volunteer positions to serve, and to serve with the community's interest at heart, with our students' interest at heart. I think, Joyce, I'm going to put everybody on the spot here a little bit, so be ready. Joyce, how many years you been doing this? 21 years as a Board of Education member. Marty? 12th year. Excellent. And you were a building principal for a number of years as well. Yep, great. Janice?
Let's see, what am I at? My 4th month now?
You're catching
like
on.
I have to go after
High
these
standards,
two
I know.
incredible ones.
Absolutely. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
11th year.
11th year.
And I'm only my 3rd.
It seems like you've been here forever.
Doesn't it feel like that?
Number 2.
Yep. Well, thank you all for your service from wherever you are, whether it's your first few months or 21st year. We're grateful and we're proud. Thank you for all that you do for our students, our staff, and our community, our Board of Education, our bright spot for the month.
Thank you. For those who are looking for a good spot, time to escape, we'll make it a little convenient. Just pause for a little bit, right? And so you don't have to feel awkward. Although I'd like to say on the way out, I think our PTAs are the unsung heroes. Perhaps we don't celebrate them enough, right? Thank you to our PTA, the presidents, and your boards. Anyway, I will officially call this meeting to order at 7:03 and seek for approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve. Ryan, Mary Kaylen, second. If there's any motions to amend, now's the best time, but you can amend any time during the course of the meeting. But no? Very good. All in favor of the agenda as it stands? No opposed? 7-0. And then our first on the agenda is our student advisory report by Sarah Grover. Invite you to the stand and grateful that you're here tonight with us. And just saw you the other day, right, with our Wall of Distinction Committee, participating in so many different things. Mm-hmm. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. All right, I'm just going to go. Good evening, everyone. I'm back here at our second meeting of the year to tell you all about the end of September and early October. As I promised last month, I will be recapping our leadership trip to Washington, D.C. in detail. So, we left Wednesday morning around 8 a.m. and had an eventful bus ride, including 2 bathroom breaks before arriving at our first stop, Annapolis, Maryland. We were allotted 3 hours to ourselves to eat seafood and ice cream and explore the Baytown. When we finally arrived in D.C., we stopped to see the monuments at night before heading over to the hotel. As you all may expect, 100+ students funneling into 2 hotel elevators for multiple days was not ideal, but we made it work. Thursday was a long, busy adventure. Multiple groups had to catch a 7:30 bus that was headed for the Pentagon, while others made their ways to the White House and the State Department. Yes, Fairport High School seniors walked the sacred floors of these impressive buildings. The day was exceptionally educational in meeting with countless high-level government officials to learn more about our assigned leadership topics. Thursday night, we spent some time in Georgetown exploring all of the different stores, restaurants, and the campus itself. On Friday, we attended our meetings that were scheduled in buildings on Capitol Hill. Senators, representatives, and many of their staffers allowed us this opportunity to learn a lot more about how our government works to tackle the issues that our country faces every day. By Friday evening, our brains had absorbed so much new information that we clearly needed a well-deserved break. We went on a night dinner cruise that provided indoor seating to protect us from the cold rain that was going on, as well as a dance floor. The night began slowly. We ate the buffet tacos and the mac and cheese while debriefing on how our trip was going so far. But then, before we knew it, every one of us students were jumping up and down, screaming at the tops of our lungs to the DJ's song choices. It was, no joke, almost 3 hours of singing and dancing. I'm unsure how this was even possible, but it truly was the best night to end such an awesome trip. My peers and I thank the board dearly for making this experience possible. The ride home was brisk, but now we're back, and we're all busy writing our 12-page policy papers that are due tomorrow. Or actually, they're due tonight at midnight, my bad. But DC was worth it, right? No, it definitely was. It was awesome. Anyways, Fairport High School as a whole, sophomores, juniors, and seniors who did not take leadership are doing great things as well. Next week is Red Ribbon Week, where the theme days will be Sock It to Drugs Fun Sock Day, My Future is So Bright Neon Day, Tip Your Hat to Being Drug-Free Hat Day, Team Up Against Drugs Sports Gear Day, and Wear Red and Live Drug-Free Day. This is a week that's often overlooked, but is ever more important to recognize and to keep students safe and away from drugs. Speaking of which, Save a Life Tour came to Fairport just yesterday, offering an impaired driving virtual reality simulator, as well as a texting while driving one. Students were able to test out these simulations and were immediately painted a transparent image of the dangers of driving while intoxicated and of letting your phone distract you. This past Saturday, seniors were able to paint their parking spots. Everyone had a lot of fun doing this as they put their own special touch of individuality on display. Plus, the parking lot looks great, despite the few smears of paint that the rain caused, of course. All fall sports teams are headed into the rush of sectional playoffs within the next week, and I wish them luck. Unfortunately, the girls' tennis team, which is my team, has concluded our season after a tough loss to Brighton in team sectionals. However, Sam Rava, our first singles player, will be attending individual state qualifiers tomorrow. So go Sam. As we finish our beautiful fall and transition into the holiday months, it is important that we all keep our Raider spirit high. To wrap up today, I just want to recognize the support I personally have received this past month. My father passed away on September 24th, and in the time since then, I have been treated with nothing but love and care from all of my friends, teachers, and administrators at school. I give a special thank you to the Board of Education for the beautiful edible arrangements fruit platter that was sent to my house. I really do live in the best town I could ever ask for. Have a great evening, everyone, and thank you for having me.
Is your paper written, Sarah, or do you have a long night ahead of you? Is your paper completed, or do you have a long night ahead of you? Only.
You could pull that off in with 20 minutes. I think you got that. And thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Happened to be in the building one morning and stopped into Mr. Clark's office to say congrats on a great leadership trip, and then he unloaded on how fabulous it was, still wondering about the amazing contacts that you have to get people into the White House for interviews in the White House itself. But congratulations on a successful leadership trip. Yeah, thank you. Well, thanks to Sarah. It's great to have her as our student advisor 2 years in a row. And our hearts and prayers do go out to her and her family. This brings us to our public comment period. We have five people signed up tonight. Remind them of the policy that's associated with it without reading all of it. It is available in the website. I will call the names and remind people that they have 3 minutes each. I will try to remember to give a 30-second warning when there's 30 seconds left if needed, and then the timer will go off and ding, and ask that you be respectful and step aside for the next person. I will also call the individuals and say their address as per board policy, and start with number 1 on the list, Nicole Thibault, residing at 76 Waterford Way, and do hope I get your last name right. I know I pronounced it before. You'd think I could remember from time to time. Tebow, you know?
Nobody says it right. Hello, everyone, and good evening. There have been many previous speakers at various BOE meetings. Thank you. That have commented on the way that Fairport School District addresses the LGBTQIA students' preferences and teachings of issues in the classroom, and I'd like to continue that discussion with my time tonight. First off, I would like to thank the Fairport School District for making it very easy for me to be able to change my child's preferred gender expression with the district office. When my child first told me that they were non-binary, I was able to call the district office, have a quick conversation with someone in the registrar's office, and within a matter of minutes, we could see the change under the gender heading from male to non-binary under school tool. And you have no idea what that meant to my child to see the description match their preference. It was an amazing feeling for them. Before coming tonight, I did ask my high school aged non-binary kiddo what Fairport School District does well and what could be improved. And while I encourage them to stand up and speak for themselves tonight, they're not comfortable doing so yet, so I will be their voice. They did say that the feeling of inclusivity is felt by all of their rainbow friends at school, and they appreciate the GSA Club, where they regularly meet for support and talk about relevant topics. On the other hand, they do suggest that there be more gender-neutral bathrooms and locker rooms, or single occupancy bathrooms and changing stalls for gym, so that they feel more comfortable during private moments. I believe that Fairport is going in the right direction when it comes to welcoming and supporting the LGBTQI students. Please continue to do so. Every teacher and every administrator that I've spoken to has been nothing but positive and supportive, and I truly thank you for that. To those commenters who have stood up here only to speak of hate and intolerance, just know you are hurting people. You are hurting children, and you are hurting families. In a recent article in Medical News Today, a researcher said that transgender youth are 7.6% more likely to attempt suicide than their cisgender peers. And with this in mind, please, friends and neighbors, be kind, be supportive, or be quiet. Fairport, please continue to teach empathy, acceptance, and love for all kinds of relationships and gender expressions. Because yes, here in New York, we do say gay. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole Tebow, right? Thank you. Second is Mike Nebrowski at 7 Brimfield Circle.
Thank you. Last month, the board unanimously approved a 5-year contract for Superintendent of Schools Brett Provenzano. I have to ask, why do you think he deserves to continue as superintendent? In the real world, leaders of failing organizations are removed, not given lucrative contract extensions. Over the past 5 years, while median teacher salaries have barely increased in Fairport, superintendent comp has gone up 20%. Brett's total compensation has ballooned to over $300,000 per year, which is 3 times the average teacher salary. Now let's take a look at the past few years. In 2018, Brett unveiled a new strategic plan for the district that was a dramatic shift from traditional American education. His new plan prioritized social justice over academic excellence.
We are 4 years into this failed experiment, and unless there was a return to focus on academics, things are only going to get worse. Here are some of the highlights. They got rid of valedictorian. They got rid of honors classes. They got rid of the assistant superintendent in charge of curriculum and replaced her with a chief diversity officer. They allowed and promoted political activism inside the schools for the first time. Now we have a school culture that is politically charged, where parents are marginalized, police officers are demonized, BLM activism is celebrated, and where conservative political views are threatened by administrators. We have a faculty training program called Onward Project that teaches staff that America is rooted in white supremacy. We all had to suffer through the complete failure of the district's response to COVID-19 as you blindly followed recommendations by state and local politicians. You closed our schools, forced our kids to wear masks, and unnecessarily canceled sports and numerous events. We've got a declining enrollment, a mental health crisis, record numbers of kids leaving for private schools or homeschool, and a shortage of teachers and staff. We have rapid declining test scores in math and English, as well as a huge drop in the national rankings, as we've fallen more than 800 spots, according to the US News and World Report. And we continue to fall faster and farther compared to neighboring districts. And now we're starting to see gender and sexual identity become commonplace. We have elementary school kids being taught preferred pronouns. We have all gender bathrooms. We have kindergarten enrollment forms with choices for
30
male,
seconds.
female, and non-binary. And it recently became public that libraries across the district have books that are completely inappropriate for children. Books that contain graphic and sexually explicit materials and have no business being in schools. There's a book in the library down the hall in this building that teaches kids how to use a mobile phone app to locate sex partners nearby. I ask every member of the school board, does this sound like we're headed in the right directions? Does this sound like the type of leadership that deserves a contract extension? I say no, no way. Thank you.
Our third speaker tonight is Patricia Edwards at 31 Teal Drive.
Good evening. I'm Pat Edwards. I live at 31 Teal Drive in Fairport, New York. I'm here tonight not just as a teacher, but as a parent and resident concerned about the decline in ranking of our great district and the fact that ACT national scores are the lowest they've been in 30 years. It's very alarming. I'd like to speak about a couple of new initiatives that I fully support. They are SEL, Social Emotional Learning, and Revamped Activity Period. While these programs are positive additions for our students, I'm concerned about the classroom challenges that the implementation has caused. The SEL program was selected by a small volunteer committee, purchased by our district with the intent of rolling this new initiative out in the fall of 2022. However, that rollout was delayed for several reasons. While a delay might seem like a minor bump in the road to those outside the classroom, our elementary teachers once again find themselves in a situation where they must be trained, digest, and teach a new curriculum with no lead time. That's not in the best interest of our students or our teachers. So what often looks great on paper may not be great in practice. Now, the resurgence of activity period looks different from primary to upper elementary. At the primary level, the children receive an extra 30 minutes of free play. In the upper elementary grades, activity period is 40 minutes long. As expected, the students love activity period. If asked, they would tell you they also love PE, music, art, recess, etc., because specials are fun. Teachers appreciate specials too because that's their prep time, copier time, email answering time, phone call returning time, etc. But it may only be 40 minutes, 30 with pickups and drop-offs, but teachers don't waste a second of it. However, when you begin to tally up the time allocated to these two new programs, we must also look at the loss of instructional time. To my knowledge, none of our teachers were asked if they could still deliver the basic curriculum, reading, writing, math, science, and social studies, with 40 to 80 fewer minutes per day. So again, what looks good on paper, not so great in practice. With each lesson plan teachers write, we first determine our objectives. What do we want or need to accomplish? Then we establish a procedure for making that learning happen. We gather our materials, pace our presentation, and approach it with differentiation and flexibility to meet the needs of all students. Yet it appears that this same thoughtful consideration has not been given to the implementation of the new initiatives. It's critical that District Office Administration and the Board of Ed take great care and strive to thoroughly understand the impact and demands that accompany the approval and rollout of any new curriculum or new initiative. It would make good sense to proactively speak with those most impacted by your decisions, building principals, assistant principals, but most of all your teachers at every grade level and in every building before implementation. They are your greatest resource and the heart of our district. They will help guide the process in a way that benefits our students academically, physically, socially, and emotionally. When done well, these initiatives should also look good on paper and be great in practice. Thank you.
Thank you. Our fourth speaker, Melissa Muzak at 136 Broadmoor Trail. No? Okay, our fifth speaker then is Tiffany Porter at 30 Black Watch Trail.
Hello, bear with me. Just broke this. First of all, it takes a pathetic human being to get up here and tell you that you need to resign. You're doing a good job and you keep doing what you're doing for these kids because it's paving the way. There's a fine line between freedom of speech and allowing hate speech. What I witnessed after replaying the board meetings was hate speech towards trans youth. And that and any other hate speech needs to be called out, identified, and shut down. Most folks who speak negatively about the LGBTQ community are speaking out of ignorance, hatred of a demographic that they know little of. Several speakers have used this platform to speak about trans youth mental state, their social transition without good facts or lived experiences. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, only 7.5% of trans youth socially transition in any way, and only 2.5 of those detransition to cisgender. This concluded a 5-year study that will continue the rest of their lives and show that social transitions are infrequent. According to the UCLA School of Law, transgender people are 4 times more likely than cisgender people to be victims of violent crimes beginning at the age of 16. Can you guess what demographic of people are committing these crimes? If you said cisgender, you've been doing your research. Transphobic rhetoric packaged in positive toxic speeches is what breeds most of this violence against trans people. Many studies have concluded that trans people do suffer from more mental issues than cisgender people, not because of how they identify, but instead is due to how society treats them. You know, like people coming to school board meetings calling out trans kids and calling them mentally ill and confused. That's the kind of harassment and discrimination that makes them have mental health issues. In conclusion, to the folks who get up here with their transphobia, you are the reason trans students do not feel safe in their communities. All it takes is for you to do some deep soul diving and a little research. If this doesn't appeal to you, just know it costs you nothing to mind your business and stay out of trans folks' business. What would Jesus do? You know, I always end with that. What would Jesus do? Probably not mock and harass trans kids in a public forum.
30 seconds.
Not my sweet baby Jesus. And I wanted to just say that it takes just a little research for folks to do to understand trans youth, and you should not come up here and speak against it unless you have experienced something or done your research. And all it does is cause harm to trans students in Fairport, and that needs to stop. And we really need to take a look at what we're doing when people come up here and speak about certain things that they have no idea of, because it is hate speech. Thank you.
That concludes our public comment portion of the meeting. Moving on to the communications, the president's report, which is for myself. I do want to Note a couple items. We do appreciate the public comments. It is one of the data points that we take in, but it is a single data point. As the Board of Education, we do feel the responsibility to, to exemplify education, which is getting as much information as possible from a diversity of sources. That's how we go about making our decisions. I will for myself, I should step aside for President's Report because I choose to do this. And if it's up to me, I'd give Brett a 10-year contract or more. So you can vote for me on that or not based in the future years, but I would put that out there as a clear position of where I stand and how I support him. He has done everything the Board of Education has asked of him, which includes the strategic plans and our focus and everything. So thank you. You have our support. What are our students experiencing? It's incredible. We celebrated new teachers and tenured teachers just about an hour and a half ago. 13 educators receiving tenure. It was a great celebration, the impact that they have. That's what our students are experiencing. Spark Labs, if you're not familiar with it, I look forward to seeing more of them in our visits. I'm hearing great things out of the Spark Labs and amazing the way the lessons are developed, the engineering for robots, our elementary schools, they're learning so many incredible things at a young age that we probably couldn't imagine most of us as adults even knowing it would be a skill that was needed. Minerva DeLand had pause before you post, which they always do with Coach Fitch every year, talking about their behaviors on social media and how to make good choices online. Again, not a skill set that our generation grew up with because we didn't need to, right? But I think the lack of that skill set shows from time to time, and hopefully our students, our youth are able to make good choices, but always hear positive things about that. Heard about the leadership trip, so I won't go there anymore, but just such an incredible thing for students to experience. Over 100 plus was the number. Jefferson Ave's Fall Festival back on October 6th, right? The PTA put on an amazing family fun night, exhibits, games, picnics, all these things on social media. Bunch of clubs, we heard about one tonight, but also one of our newer clubs, the Black Student Union, met first time on October 6th. Over 60 students attended, all students invited, and heard it was a wonderful meeting. And then Joanna Perrin had a color run on October 11th. Right, a new tradition for Joanna Perrin. Glad that they, coming up with new things. And there's just a bunch of others. We've heard about sports tonight, the science rooms, right? Glad that they're experiencing that. I do remember in our tour last year in this school, went from one science classroom that was the old one over to the other and thought, how are those students not rebelling, right? When they see the other one, it was an incredible contrast. Grateful that our facilities are getting improved. Homecoming, great celebration and weekend, great turnout, the cafeteria, so many other things, and safety doors, right? Soon to be, I don't know, go live or whatever, but unfortunately we have to go there, but hopefully that means the students and staff experience great things. Invite everybody to our Wall of Distinction ceremony, which is coming up on November 16th as well in this room for past, current, any of them current educator too, right? In the Wall of Distinction. Right, might be in the cafeteria. We're trying to find a.
That's not happening.
No, it's gonna be here. Okay, never mind. Take back the 10-year contract. No. So November 16th, always an incredible celebration of incredible educators and the impact that they have had on so many students over the years. So anyway, I'm always amazed with our students. I'm amazed with our staff of all sorts and in all positions. Happy to report on all the great things they've done in our short month and a half since school has started.
Can I make a quick comment? So Brooks Hill also had their fall fun fair. I wanted to mention it. I think it was a big success as well. So I just wanted to call that out. And I know there was a little talk about activity period, the Spark Lab. I'm pretty excited. I wish that my kids were still in elementary school. I have very different children. Two of them do Odyssey of the Mind. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it really challenges kids and it provides some of that enrichment. So they've done that. I feel like the things that we're including during the activity period is what kids need at their level. So I also have kids that have IEPs and get extra support. So to me, it would have been a great help for my kids. So I'm excited to see it in place. And I'm sure they're ironing kinks out and stuff like that. But I think that the overall concept is going to be beneficial to kids of all different levels so that they are supported when they need extra help and also getting challenged. So
I'm sure we will celebrate Odyssey of the Mind somewhere along the line this year.
actually, tonight's the information night. So
Right.
Not-
Speaking of the Spark Lab, Ellie came home and was informing all of us about Dash, and just kept going on. And I said, "Who's Dash?" And she goes, "Our school's robot." Like, obviously, we should all know that the robot lives at the school now, and they all get to interact with them in Spark Lab. So great things
You
are
had a
happening.
robot in your
Yeah,
school, right?
I know. Can we bring Dash in?
Yeah.
We can.
Relative to, committee, sometimes for committee meetings, if anybody wants to report out, labor relations always behind. The next one is coming up this week. It is talking about the general shortages of staff nationwide, but experience here countywide as well across all the school districts. That will be the topic coming this Wednesday, I believe. Managing that challenge, which we have experienced very little overall here in this specific district, but one we are happy to participate in as a part of the broader community. As you know, the New York State School Board Association met last night for the annual business meeting to adopt resolutions. You can look at the results of those resolutions. They are our lobbying group in terms of school districts across the state. In Albany, it was the longest business meeting we've had, right? Going almost 6 hours. But some of the resolutions, but not some, they got their marching orders from all the school districts who voted, and those that went down and those that, were supported. So you can see the result. I forwarded you that email earlier today. Other committee meetings anybody want to report out on that were attended over the last month?
Just briefly, legislative met like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and through Monroe County School Board Association, just working through position papers and kind of setting our legislative goals for the year. Nothing concrete to report off of that.
Okay.
Janice and I went to information exchange that focused really on Act for Education and the collaboration between school districts and the community, pointing out that school districts in Monroe County are the second largest employer in the county, and really forging that cooperation. I know Brett serves on that as well. So
Combined, we're the second largest. Who's the largest? Because combined, that's impressive.
University of Rochester and Medical Center.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I should have said Joyce and Erica and Brett were at legislative too. It wasn't just me.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time and going to these other committees on top of all the things we do just within the district. So with that, we will turn it over to our superintendent, Mr. Brett Provenzano.
There's really not much for me to say between Sarah and these great reports, the spotlights that we've been having. We celebrate people here in Fairport. This evening's celebration of our tenured staff and, of course, our new staff. There's lots to celebrate. The mindsets that they need to have these days. It's about investing. It's about investing in a purpose that is something greater than themselves. I am fortunate enough to see it all in my 8th year, and I get to see all the academic prowess. I get to see the great things and connections that occur, not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. And I'm really proud of Bill Tiberio, who was recognized from the Eastman School of Music for music excellence and education. Anyone who knows Bill is soulful, who can light up a room. Proud to serve with him. We have 2 amazing Brooks Hill educators. Some of you worked with them very closely here, Cindy Rubenstein and Susan Rydell, to present at a statewide math conference, and so excited to share their passion and love for math and the things that they do with our students every single day. These are our staff. And just recently, FHS chemistry teacher Elizabeth or Beth Burns received a American Chemical Society Award. Again, that's a recognition of excellence in her craft. And we look forward to continuing to talk about our staff who makes connections in our bright spots. We have nationally board certified teachers who we'll be talking about. We have students who are certified and endorsed by the state as well for education and teaching in math and science. So lots to talk about. Looking forward to the coming months. But, the thing that I'm most proud about, are the celebrations, are how the board continually tries to program beyond the classroom. Yes, reading, writing, and arithmetic is critically important. We want our students to be future ready, whatever that future might be. But also, we invest in Safety Week. And Safety Week is an opportunity for us to reinforce critical habits. Throughout our elementary schools, this was recognized. Here's a picture of firefighter talking to one of our classes today. I think it was mentioned, I think Sarah brought it in. We had a day where we focused on road and driving safety, right? And these are life skills, and staff makes sacrifices, administrators make schedules to bring these ideas to life. But these are just examples of things that are happening just like this throughout our entire district. It's National Principals Month. It's a way to recognize the great things that happen in our buildings. So much organization, so much planning, so much leadership, so much communication. And our principals do it, and they never question, and they just serve with the greatest intentions to add value, to make connections with kids, and be the best for our staff and community. So thank you to our educators, our leaders in the building. October 6th, National Coaches Day, and we have so much success with our interscholastic athletic program. We're saying thank you to our coaches. You remember your coaches, you remember the experiences that happened. So when we talk about our investments in future planning and the things that we have been doing, it's an intentional decision by the board to give our students and our community the very best in facilities. We've been talking about an anticipated vote on Fairport 4 2020-22. The vote will be on December 13th. We're anticipating that vote to be on December 13th of this year. But I just want to start and share a little video that we also shared, on our social media. It's where we've been, so people can see that this is part of a bigger process. My name is Brett Provenzano, Superintendent of Fairport Schools. The 2019 project has been amazing. It's great to see the energy. Our students have gone out of their way to say how it's made learning fun. If you take a look and walk around our schools, our community expects that we give our students warm, welcoming, and engaging environments.
The 2019 project really dates back to assessing our needs on building condition survey and, soliciting some feedback from the community about how they felt about our buildings. And what you would have heard back then is like that really well maintained but very antiquated buildings. What we're seeing right now, 2022, is we're just starting to experience the upgrading of some of those facilities and really kind of bringing us in line with our peers and around the county, and creating really great flexible learning spaces for kids.
Renewed excitement in what the school district is. People have a really great love for this district, I think more so than you would see in most other districts. But facilities, especially in our fields, we're aging.
Our science rooms received the most benefit in the last capital project vote. We were able to renovate and expand, update our facilities. They were quite outdated. They didn't really accommodate 21st century learning. And so what we have now are spaces where it's flexible seating, kids can move around, teachers can move rooms. We have different spaces within the room that allow for more collaborative learning styles. So it's just really exciting.
We had the artificial turf redone in the stadium. The original turf was there for 10 or 11 years, and it was really getting to the point where it needed to be replaced. Where we're standing right now on the new multi-purpose turf field, the soil here, it just does not drain. So for probably as long as we've had baseball and softball here, those teams have had more away games than home games. On the surface, that may not sound like it's okay, you have to move a game here and there, but it really starts to impact families. Well, this is really going to provide us with a surface where we can play in the spring and also in the fall, in the later months as well for our fall teams.
Brand new, state-of-the-arts, fully functioning, extra amenities beyond what a lot of colleges would rival, and the excitement that rallies around that is incredible.
It looks beautiful now. I feel like they took in our advice and our opinions voice. They took it in really well, and they did a beautiful job.
The cafeteria is wonderful. In addition to it being a place where the kids are eating, the other spaces in there are huge. So, there can be club meetings, there can be meetings with teachers.
I want to say it's pushing 40,000 square feet of kitchen, cafeteria, serving line, cooking area, which is absolutely amazing.
The new dining hall is really nice, especially the senior lounge. I really like having a space where I can go during lunch to chill out, and it's very nice to see a lot of my friends in there.
the oohs and the ahs the first couple weeks from students when they came in the doors and seeing the cafeteria for the first time, seeing those new science labs, stepping foot and watching how expansive this complex that we're standing on right now is. It pumps up the energy up. You can tell just by the look on people's faces.
We've been talking to the community for several years now on the importance of having pride in our facilities, making sure that we have welcoming facilities that meet the needs of an expansive program. Our community expects it, our students deserve it, and our Board of Education has responded to that expectation and need. So what that video didn't show were the other pieces of the project, which included safety and security entrances at our schools, renovations to science classrooms at Martha Brown. The technology wing at JP will be renovated in the coming year as well. If you've been to JA, there's a whole new system of parking and safety with buses, new playground. So lots of investment. That's part of our strategic plan. And the next part of our facilities planning and strategic plan is Fairport for 2020-22, which we'll be talking about in a little bit. But here's the timeline. We'll continue to talk about the timeline. You will see our current fifth graders. And the number one priority is being able to take our fifth graders, who will be ninth graders in 2026, and bring them to Fairport High School. And in order for that to happen, which we'll be talking about, renovation needs to occur. That's the number one priority in this Fairport for 2020-22. But we're also beginning to talk about consolidating our district buildings. Balmer Place, which is where special ed is housed now. How are we going to use Martha Brown and Minerva DeLand as a functioning facility once we sell Balmer Place? So those are some of the highlights, including updates to our infrastructure for the priorities. And it takes time to have a project, and that's what this timeline reflects, which again, we'll be talking about. There's SED and design phases that need to occur if we're fortunate enough for the referendum to pass on December 13th. Then there's multiple years of construction as highlighted in the timeline. There's more opportunities to learn about Fairport for 2020-22. So far we've had 3 community presentations. It was at the PTA yesterday for Fairport High School and Minerva DeLand, and I'll be going to Martha Brown tomorrow night. But these are the dates: October 26th, November 9th, and November 29th. Hopefully people have questions. We'll also be streaming all of these sessions on our YouTube live channel. But
Stream, not recorded necessarily. I mean, they're not available after the
well, they will be. Yep, they're right on.
Okay,
And
yeah.
again, they're pretty much the same presentations. We've tweaked them here and there based upon feedback that we've gotten. But in essence, you'll be able to go there if you're not able to make it on any of those nights.
Brett, can I just ask a quick question about the informational sessions? Are these a time where people can ask questions, or is it more
Those
just
are the best
information?
kind. It's those are the best kind. If you've been to any one of our sessions, it's a fluid conversation. We do have a presentation, and sometimes it's embedded in the presentation. But sometimes people have questions that they need further explanation on, which we'll be happy to accommodate.
Thank you.
And just to the video, shout out to our partners at Campus and Labella for all the work they did to make all that awesome stuff actually happen. So thank you.
I did sneak a peek at you when the fields came up, and there seemed to be a smile on all your face. Like, yeah, you did a pretty good job, huh?
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Always, as paying for it, we have to do that. And so to Mr. Matt Stevens for our treasure and investment update.
Okay, thank you and good evening. Tonight we have the treasure and investment update for the month of August 2022. We had a beginning general fund cash balance of $50.5 million, receipts of the month of $3.5 million, and disbursements of $4.2 million for an ending cash balance of $49.8 million. Of the $49.8, approximately $46.7 was invested in a mix of money market, cash sweep, and T-bills. About 94% of the overall cash balance there. Very similar to prior year. Revenues and expenses for the month, again, tracking similar to prior year. Revenues about $609,000, expenses of $9.5 million. Not abnormal when we're looking at the summer months. Revenues really start to pick up with the tax receipts in the coming months, as well as state aid payments that we received during the school year. And that is the report for the month of August of 22.
Thank you, and we will see shortly, we'll have our auditor, we do have our auditor here who will report on last year as well. And for the general public, under the consent calendar, the treasurer's report is attached there. It's not under 4C, but under 5C, for those who would like to review the document itself. That takes us to the consent calendar. All the items in here are approved in a single motion. A consent calendar is not up for discussion or debate. So if any item in here you'd like to have removed from the consent calendar, now's the time to make a motion to amend. Otherwise, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent calendar. All right, Caitlin, second. Joyce, all in favor? Seeing no opposed, 7-0. Takes us down to the acceptance of donations. People may wonder, it is required by law, though we accept donations, that they can't just donate to districts. So anyway, and we're happy to do it so we can recognize those who do, especially this one, the FHS gym scoreboard. So a motion to accept this donation, which is multi-year. Brian, thank you. Second. Marty, thank you. It is a multi-year donation, right, Matt? That's been given.
Yep. This was a couple of years ago that the Merchants Association committed some funds to our the purchase of the scoreboard that's already been up and installed in the high school gymnasium, and now they're continuing their planned contribution of those funds over the years in terms of the overall commitment. And we really appreciate that and thank them for.
Yes, we do. Thank you. That's exactly it. And we approve each time, right? Instead of just, they made notice of one, but every time they actually provide the cash, it comes in as a separate gift, if you will. But we are very grateful for their dedication and support of our district. So all in favor, or other questions? Sorry. No? Okay, all in favor, sorry. 7-0. I didn't expect it to be anything but. Personnel actions, instructional. Motion to approve the instructional staff actions as listed in the agenda. Marty first, Erica second. Questions, comments?
Quick question. What is the Teacher Immersion Fellowship Program? Can you just tell me a little more about that?
The Teacher Immersion Fellowship Program is an opportunity for partnerships with local universities, and we have students come in and actually teach and support. And, the sub shortage, Mr. Loff, I'll let you take it from there. You can talk a little bit more about the partnership and what it tries to accomplish. I'll let you speak to it since you are.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for the college students and for the school districts. I'm pretty sure all the districts in Monroe County work through BOCES to do the program, and like Superintendent Provenzano said, they are in varying places in their path to certification and becoming teachers, and they take classes and do professional development, and they also sub for us, and we try and get 8 per year so we can have 1 in each building, even though they're not all available Monday through Friday. They have varying degrees of availability based on their coursework and whatnot, but it's a great partnership. It was developed a few years back, and like I said, I believe every district in Monroe County is participating.
If I could add, the nice partnership we have with BOCES actually also provides all the school districts with some BOCES aid for these costs as well. So it's a nice benefit with the shared service that we have with BOCES.
Awesome, thank you. And speaking of substitutes, how are we looking? I know last year we were a little worried. Are we doing okay?
Okay is a relative term. We're doing okay. We have been, getting new subs on a regular basis, but you'll see some resignations too, which is our kind of annual clean out as well when we send out the statements asking people if they're going to return to the district. If they don't return it, or if they let us know they got a job somewhere else. But we can start tracking that again. We probably should, as far as like we did last year with the updates to the board.
Yep.
So I'd be happy to do that.
You can never have enough. I mean, we always need subs, and I think we've gotten good at making do, and I think our staff has stepped up, are doing things that they otherwise wouldn't be doing just to continue with the day. So I tip my hat off to our staff.
I just wanted to let you know that I had friends in undergrad who participated in the TIP program, and they got a wonderful experience at many different schools throughout Monroe County. So I'm really happy to hear that Fred's participating in that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments on this instructional? All in favor? No opposed? 7-0. Non-instructional civil service. Motion to approve is outlined. Marty, thank you. Joyce, a second. Questions, comments in this area? Seeing, hearing none, all in favor? 7-0. Athletics. Motion to approve the athletic coaches as outlined. Ryan, thank you. Second? Jan? Questions, comments here? No? All in favor? 7-0. And then finally, some memorandums of agreement. Motion to approve the 7 memorandums of agreement that we have.
So moved.
Marty, thank you. Second, Joyce. Questions, comments about these?
It seems like we have a lot of need for facts. Is that a wide problem?
It's a certification issue. It's a state issue. You don't see a lot of family and consumer science teachers. Yes, you see a need there, and you see people stepping up and doing things, again, outside of what they normally are being asked to do, because we need to make sure that we can provide the program. It is a depleted market in the family and consumer science, but again, Mr. Loft, did you want to?
Yeah, we are not the only district in the area looking for FACS teachers, formerly known as Home and Careers. And we're fortunate that we have teachers that are stepping up to cover this for our students. We're continuing with the posting though. So if you noticed with the MOAs, we're taking it, part of the year at a time with the hopes to still hire a certified FACS teacher for the remainder of the year. But I think we're one of probably 3 districts in the area still looking, and it's, a single digit application pool at best.
And this was something at least my first year on the board, talking about that this wave was coming with the FACS area, right? That certification area that's just not being entered into much. And
Do we have any local universities that offer it? Because I know the ones I've worked with don't. So I'm just.
No, they're out of the area, but we, continue to reach out, and, Lindsay Reddig has been awesome with helping us with advertising, but no, luckily we were able to fill one because we had more than one position. So.
Well, thank you to these teachers for being willing to step up and take an extra class and in an area outside their certification as well. All in favor? No opposed, 7-0. Okay. Getting to even the more exciting parts, right? Our financial audit. So we'll turn that over to Mr. Stevens for introductions and.
Yep, so tonight we have Tom Zuber with Mengel, Metzger, and Barr, and formerly Ray Wagger's firm is a division of Mengel. So tonight we have Tom here, and we thank Tom and his staff for the work that they've done over the year and summer, as well as our treasurer. Just a quick soundbite for him and all the work in the business office staff. So Tom, go right ahead. Thank you.
And if I might just quickly for those watching or the board as well, they're attached to 9E and F to help you going over, but we're at 8A. So Tom, thank you.
Good evening. I think I have it on. The green light is showing, so that's a good thing. Again, I'm pleased to be here tonight to talk a little bit about the audit of the June 30th, 2022 basic financial statements for the school district, and you should have received in your board packet the basic financial statements as well as the internal control communication. And again, something to kind of keep in mind is that these financial statements really the result of a budget process that you folks started more than 2 years ago, right? So it's just over 2 years or almost 2 years since the beginning of that budget process, and really this really talks about the financial results of that process. And we did meet with the audit committee back on October 12th, and we had a very good discussion with the audit committee. We talked about year-over-year variances. We talked about fund balances and reserves. We talked about internal control checks and balances. So we had a very good discussion, and we even spent some time talking about long-term planning and the importance of reserves. And again, a very good discussion. Some of the challenges that not only Fairport faces, but many school districts in the state face, continue to be out there. Certainly, a few new ones over the past few years. Inflation certainly has become a challenge. Healthcare costs, pension costs continue to be challenging areas. The tax cap continues to be a challenge for all New York State school districts. So, those challenges still exist for school districts out there. And, part of the ability for school districts to face challenges and really be successful is how you look and develop your long-term plans, specifically relating to things like your reserve accounts. Okay. And Fairport has really done a very nice job over the years in that long-term planning process, which really includes the discussions that are had during budget time over the reserve accounts and how those reserves can benefit the district over that long-term period of time. So, you continue to be in good financial condition and really continue to have good conversations about the reserves. In fact, a couple of the reserves that the school district has, you have several different reserves, but a couple of the key reserves, reserves like the employee retirement contribution reserve, the teacher's retirement contribution reserve, really very important reserves to have. They'll help maintain any spikes in those rates that are out there. So again, very good reserves to have. The other reserve you have, which really Fairport has used very well over the past several years, really relates to those capital reserves. And you just saw some of the highlights of the 2019 capital project that was part of the superintendent's report. And, you're talking about a new capital project coming up. And again, these capital reserves really are very beneficial, that they really help reduce the tax impact of those projects. So again, very useful reserves. In fact, you're using those reserves as part of your budget process. You used a little over $6.5 million during your budget process, which is very positive. And you're also refunding those reserves. You were able to allocate a little over $5.8 million into those capital reserves, again, which will help reduce the financial impact of future projects. So again, very positive from the long-term financial planning. Okay, so we did have a nice conversation with the audit committee. We also talked about internal controls, checks and balances. I'm pleased to report there are no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies identified in the audit, so that's very positive. That's really where you want to be when it comes to the audit of the basic financial statements. So again, very good. We did have a few minor procedural items, just enhance the current checks and balances that you have in place. But again, overall, very positive. As you know, those internal control communications really are the results of the different checks and balances that you have over your financial cycles. And again, no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. So very, very positive. Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
The audit committee was pleased. I hope everyone is that, again, no material weaknesses. Healthy position for a district, which is good. Looking out to future capital projects, we've saved as much as we can and set aside for what's CIP number 2, which we'll hear about soon. So overall, it's great. Thank you, Mr. Stevens, but also thank our treasurer sitting up there quietly, Mr. Chris Eckert. Thank you for being here, but as well for the team that you lead and doing a good job of managing the finances. We've had clean audits for as long as I can remember, so. Right. Yeah, that's not an invitation to change. Okay. Tom, thank you for coming.
Thank you for all your help.
So our next presentation is just an update on where we stand with the 2019 capital project.
Alrighty, good evening. Here is our 2019 capital improvement project update for the month of September. So here's just an overall look at the project referendum. Again, that 56,750 These are the different contracts in place, prime contracts, state contracts, our contingency incidental budgets that make up the overall referendum value. So a deeper look at the financials based on contractor pay applications. We're 64% complete between phases 1A and 1B. Through the month of September, we're just shy of 2 million in change orders, leaving us 1.4 left in our contingency. And we still have just shy of 360 in our contract allowances. Looking ahead as far as work going on at the buildings here at the high school, we're going to be continuing on with punch list items up on the second floor, along with continuing renovation of the current phase of classrooms we're in, which are 3 biology rooms, and then out at the multi-purpose field, same story there, continuing with punch list and SWIP items. Staying at the high school, the finishes project, we're coordinating through the wall tile and locker installs with that contractor over holiday breaks and evenings. And then going over to 1B, similar story over with Brooks Hill with punch list items in the secure entrance, site restoration over at JA, and science room science rooms turnover at Martha Brown. And just an overall look at the larger scope items for 1A. Again, we're continuing our work through the science classrooms. We have about 7 left up on the second floor, and then a big push on the boiler room this summer to get that turned back over. And our larger items still left is the gymnasium, which we're targeting over the summer. And then the high school finishes project, again, mainly in the corridors here, and we had some terrazzo work in the cafeteria, but again, that's going to be new terrazzo flooring and wall tile and lockers. And then 1B bounces around to all the other buildings with the exception of the high school here. And again, just still continuing on those current classrooms and buildings that we're working on, wrapping up those punch list items. Site restoration over at JA. And then our smart schools, again, continuing through our phase 1 buildings. Be shortly preparing for phase 2, but they've been making good progress through those buildings, getting all of the different components in for that security system. So on to the photos, starting here at the high school. Here's a look at the rooms we're currently renovating. And again, these are 3 biology rooms. And there's the rough-in going in for the walls. And here's up above the gymnasium where we have just recently installed the new air handling unit in this space. Here's just a look at some of the demo that was going on. And then down into the boiler room, here's the new generator exhaust. And then switching over to 1B, here are the new cal wall at Minerva DeLand. So look inside Martha Brown's faculty room. Here's a look at the new science rooms over at Martha Brown. Very similar to what we have at the high school as far as finishes. Here's just another shot of that with the furniture. And then over to Jefferson Ave, the new playground.
Just wanted to know a community member noticed a difference and reached out to us to express gratitude for the new, what do you call that? Base? The surface. Yeah, the surface, right? Making it accessible. It was immediately noticed, and, you know, gratitude was expressed. So
That's great.
Yeah.
And here's just a look at the basketball court over at Jefferson Ave. And a couple more shots of the new playground equipment. And then also over at Jefferson Ave, some of the new retention basins. I don't think, well, along with site restoration going on. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I refrained, believe it or not. I think back from slide 8. But it might be more for Matt, because it said phase 2 for smart bonds was dependent on reimbursement from the state for the phase 1. Why is that dependent? I mean, I guess I understand we were allocated the $3 million from the Smart Bond Act of, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, but
Yep, so the allocation is about 3.2 million. We phased the work out. It's reimbursed. It's work that will be reimbursed for the cost. So right now, we're going to be fronting the money. So general fund, in essence, is fronting a little over $1.6 million. Tried to break it out as even as we could. In terms, might be a little bit over 1.6 million, but once we get through the phase one work that was back on the slide for the smart schools, we'll then work and submit to the state the invoices, all the things they require for reimbursement, and then it's on dependent upon when we actually get that cash back, so we're not fronting $3.2 million, so that we can try to stay in that $1.6 million range for
Yeah.
cash that we're putting forward. Important with especially all of the different federal grant monies and all the different pieces that we are fronting the cash for.
As a finance guy, I can appreciate the reimbursement. I just wonder if we want to make phase two dependent on that, if we have the cash flow sufficient to support starting phase two, but that's more to the wider board, right?
Yeah,
than
we'll,
to-
we'll watch in terms of how long we think it'll take for reimbursement. You know, if it's not going to take too long or we get an idea of when it's going to come back, then we'll start ordering the materials and items. We've had these conversations with Day Automation already in terms of the process and when we think we can get a head start on that to, start working on the construction side of it. So we can watch it all and we can discuss that also as a smaller committee if we want to front more cash depending on how long the work itself takes. It's about a 4 to 6 month process, but all depends on whether or not there's delays in lead times and some of the different supplies we need. So it could take a little
Which
bit
has been
longer,
the
which
case.
this one has. So all factors to consider when we're going through that process.
Yeah, supply chains impacting us everywhere. I assume that's probably more the process for reimbursement, because I think the state already went out and borrowed all that money, right? When they approved it, so the cash has been received by the state.
Yeah, it's the process.
3.2 is ours, it just needs to be approved, so they will send us the money that they're already sitting on.
Yes, it's the process. At one point in time, I believe early on in the process, they were looking at probably a turnaround of 4 weeks, but then we had heard later on that it would be more of a 3 to 4 month process for reimbursement. So hopefully by the time we're submitting, they're back on track and they have staff to process reimbursements and we can get the funds a little bit sooner.
As a person who appreciates the time value of money in terms of the job I do, I can see them saying, let's go a couple more months, right? Because they can make interest off that cash of ours as they
Yep.
stretch it out, right? But anyway, okay, thank you for that. I have one more, but the Jefferson Ave retention basin, unless others have, we were able to mitigate any impact in terms of drainage during construction onto neighbors, and I mean, I didn't hear anything, so I was hoping that was a good sign, because I know that was a concern.
Yep, we had SWIP reports every 2 weeks. If there were deficiencies, we corrected them within 24 hours. And currently it's planted now, so it's actually holding more water. as
Okay.
it was designed.
So no impact, negative impacts. Again, we didn't hear anything, so I think that's great, which says thank you for managing that in that neighborhood area. Anything else? As always, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin.
Leads us into the next part on the agenda, which is now discussion action items. This first one is discussing what Brett's already had as part of his report, right? The 2022 capital improvement project with the vote here in December. Being that these slides are all ones that either have been part of CIP presentations as well as the 3 that were advertised, I think it's more ideal if we, because we're very familiar with it, have a discussion or things that we're hearing. I know some of the questions we're hearing and it's been out there and can provide a confirmation answer, but a question that comes up a lot is, are we really going to combine the 2 schools, right? Will we really bring the 9th graders up here? And that is the overall intention. We passed a resolution, was it last year or is it?
It
2
was
years ago?
May 28th, 2019, the Board of Education had a resolution to merge.
Time goes, I have no sense of time, but it was a resolution, right? And it would take a resolution to put us on a different trajectory. Not that anybody, what's the audience watching both in person and outside, but it was a resolution. Just say, the answer to that question is, it's formal, but it's in there. That's part of the presentation, right? That by resolution, the board said this is our goal and our trajectory.
The one thing what was behind that resolution was lots of research and community outreach and engagement. And there was a process from our district advisory council, which included, again, outreach to our community at large. We had, thousands of pieces of data from focus groups and from regular surveys to make that decision. We had it was a conversation every month at a workshop, talking about the reasons why we're doing that.
Great. But other questions that are being heard, your experience, are you being stopped in Wegmans or, the whatever?
I'm constantly sending messages to people, but just some of the things I think we talked a little bit about. Parking has been one of those in terms of when we're bringing additional staff over, and I know that there is great consideration put into that. I think you're showing right now.
Yeah, Mr. Stevens, you could jump in on this one, but that was something that we do have Troy from Labella here. Feel free to jump up to the podium if you want to address something that Mr. Stevens leaves off the top conversation here.
Thanks. So the up on the screen, the site plan overlay here, you see at the top of the screen in yellow, the addition, and then with that addition, there's some additional parking on the west side of the northwest side of the building, and then the tennis courts that used to be where the cursor is hovering over, being moved over in between the current stadium turf and the new multi-use turf field. To accommodate parking. So we've looked at the number of parking spots over at Minerva that are being utilized in terms of staff, and to accommodate that over at Fairport High School for the parking. And then there's some additional handicap parking, handicap accessible parking over between the stadium turf and where you see the track being moved as well. So that has also been a need of ours over the years to have accessible parking in the back of the building near our fields.
That was my other thing that I get a lot, because I think in our current parking lot, we put up little cones, I think, and then have the accessible parking, right? Am I correct?
Yep, we do. We put cones up and we have the accessible parking labeled in that
close to
sense.
it.
That's close to the back, but this provides it even closer to the back.
And then I think all of us on the board hear about sometimes trying to get people that might move differently to the different fields if they're watching kids, so my assumption is with all of this, the fields themselves will be easier to get to and accessible. Let's say if you're using a wheelchair or a walker or something like that. I'm making that assumption, but so I think it will be a lot easier. I think many of us get those questions. We can't get there. How can we do it?
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. Probably given my job, but
The track has so many students who participate in track, right?
Yeah.
That it was challenging. I shouldn't say terrible. It was challenging to get there, and then not a great place to sit either and watch. And so if you had any type of accessibility challenges, that was one where you just couldn't really get to. I talk past tense. It's still present tense for that challenge, right?
So mentioning the track and which just people get excited about when they kind of light up when we say we're redoing the track and having an 8-lane track. They're like very excited about it, and this is very good for so many students. Peter, like you were saying, the new tennis courts. We saw in a survey from coaches and parents and players that you need 7 courts for a match and not 6 like we had. So this lets that happen. So that's great.
There's lots of things we can't do, county events and competitions, because of the facility limitations. The track is one of those. You need an 8-lane track. We can't have Section 5 meets here. Our community, our students, are missing out on experiencing it at their home field.
Is there anything we're going to be limited on? Like, is there something we still won't be able to do with all of this?
Swimming.
Good question.
Correct, and that's phase 3. Correct. Yeah, I mean, it's going to allow us to. Fully. Oh.
Will the track be open to community members after school hours and when there are no events going on?
So a question from the audience is will the track be open to our community members?
I mean, right now, if you go to any of our schools, there are people walking. It's Trail Town, USA. Yeah, it won't change.
I let Mary Caitlin button line there. But so the athletic stuff is, but you know where I'm going with this, Brett. But like speaking of the arts and speaking of theater and music and that part of this project. So I know our sports teams do great. We're so much more than sports. What can they expect from this in this project?
Again, staging the school to have students from Minerva Land to come to Fairport High School is the priority. And you're right, the athletic fields are nice. However, there's lots of academic pieces, learning environment pieces that are embedded in this project. You'll see if I'm using the cursor, you're looking at a whole new STEAM lab right here: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Right now, our facilities are antiquated. They're not able to be used every single period just by their very configuration. If we were to take a walk down there, the maker spaces are supposed to hold, 30 to 40 individuals. We can probably put 12 kids in ours, right? We have the NASA Hunch program, who's working in all these different parts of the building, but it could be more efficient. We could do more things with our kids if they had this area. And this is that little bump out, right? And so then we have an art renovation. We still have dark rooms, which are not a thing, but they're still there, that need to be renovated. Our spaces, our staff does an amazing job making do with the spaces they have. Our kids do amazing in the spaces they have, but we could do better for them and provide an environment that just enables learning. We brought students to Labella a few weeks back. They were so excited to help with the design, the ideas that they had. Architects did an amazing job of getting them to be creative, to give their insights, and they were coming up with all sorts of great ideas on how you could take the art room and link it with the STEAM lab, right? So if you have some beginning auto classes, right now that room is only used 3 or 4 times a day out of a 9-period day, and only 12 kids can be using it, right? So we want to still give that experience, but then use our space differently. So on the other side of that, we could have a graphic art class, or we can have a wood shop, many different things that we could do just by thinking how we can, meld and use it in a multidisciplinary way. And then you go all the way up here by the auditorium are the music rooms. We're excited about the prospects of redesigning that whole space for choir, for instrumental music lessons. Kids were sharing their thoughts along with staff on these very important pieces of renovation to make the learning relevant and engaging. And then we have the library spaces. Again, totally reconfiguring our library. I was talking to a librarian today over here, Lisa Ferry, and she was excited about the opportunities to dream big, to think about the possibilities of using space differently, making the library a central part of the school. Again, as we prepare for students, we're going to need to carve out classrooms, take workrooms, and turn them back into classrooms. So a strong academic focus so we can focus on our programming and do more with our programming.
Can I just throw in something about the library? I'm so excited. I have a friend who works at the high school library, and she said she was part of the conversations, just kind of the dreaming part of the reconstruction. And she was so excited, and to be also just a part of the planning process, I think speaks highly to who we value and that they are, a part of the conversation. I'm excited in that I think libraries are taking a new form than they used to be. Not to say that they aren't still quiet places where kids go to work and study and be able to focus, but it's going to allow community, it's going to allow kids to collaborate and work together. And the more I hear about kids, using kind of their lunchtime to have lunch and then go to the library and get some work done, I just think we're so excited about the cafeteria and how it looks like a college cafeteria. I'm envisioning our library is going to look like a college library. So really excited.
Teacher workspaces so they can collaborate will be designed as we talk about how do we use, there's so much unused space here, and we're working closely with our architectural team to reimagine space, again, so staff can have those places where they can connect with each other, connect with students. They meet with students in between periods, so we do see that piece being a central focus of this.
Any other thing people are hearing out and about? And
So the focus of this project, we know, is moving Minerva to the high school and preparing for that. But in the thought exchange, there were concerns from elementary teachers about our, what about us and what about our building conditions? So if we could just take a look at what's happening there.
When I saw that, I was actually kind of hopeful and excited because I was so glad that people recognized that all of our schools need a little bit of TLC. And what we're doing here in this project is, each building will have a little something, not as much as the high school, because the whole project, if we were to take every single need that we have, we'd be having a $200 million project, which isn't right or fiscally responsible, and how we can maximize aid and be fair to the taxpayer. But Mr. Stevens is going to take a moment to talk a little bit about what's happening in the other schools.
So a big main piece and theme of work at the other buildings would be that related to our building condition survey, such as upgrading some bathrooms across the buildings, as well as doing some work in our mechanical, HVAC, as well as our direct digital controls for our energy efficiencies as a district. So you see some of that at Brooks Hill and also at Martha Brown, and then at Jefferson Ave, we are looking to renovate, reconstruct another kitchen cafeteria, over the course of years and projects, again, as project funds allow, as well as capital reserve money and building aid. So Jefferson Ave is one of the buildings that's been identified just due to some of the other upgrades in code compliance that we could see over there as well within that building. So those are the, just a brief summary of our elementary buildings. And talked a little bit about the middle schools. I don't know if you want to jump to over the years, some of the different work that has taken place at our buildings through our capital projects, but we are using a mix between local dollars as well as we did some work in a project in 2000, voted on back in 2015 for a roofing project where we also did some renovations in our buildings. We've renovated libraries, added some air conditioning at Brooks Hill, and we did some with local dollars. We upgraded the Dudley Library, exterior door replacement, and then we continue to use, as well as using the Smart Schools money to do some security enhancements across the district and buildings, and you can see that here up on the screen. Looking to continue to focus the funds on our capital outlay projects where we are allowed $100,000 a year to do some work and replace exterior doors, to use it for flooring and so on and so forth, some of those pieces. So between local dollars as well as that, allocating the funds to continue upgrading at our elementary buildings.
But I fully accept the feedback, and I think it was great feedback, and I'm glad people are paying attention. There does need to be more work done in our elementary schools are next, which I know that we'll be talking about future projects. I'm sure someone will have a question about soon.
When will the other playgrounds get resurfaced? Because they should all be accessible, and that surfacing is safer as well.
That's a great question, and it is. But Mr. Stevens talked about the $100,000 projects. I know each year the Board of Education dedicates dollars directly related to upgrades in our general fund budget. So it's prioritizing. We're not going to be able to do them all in one shot, but I can imagine us prioritizing, the playgrounds, prioritizing some other pieces at the elementaries, like some of the libraries. So those are going to be some of the questions that we're going to be dealing with outside of the capital project because of the board's investment in the general fund, specifically related to upgrades and improvements.
I advocate for sooner rather than later.
Thank you.
It is a safety thing as well as an accessibility thing. It's important.
So we can take that as part of the finance committee too, right? As we
So
get
what
in
are
the
you trying
budget
to say,
season,
Chris?
looking at how do we, not how or allocate money within the general fund itself. So we'll make a note.
Thank you. Good question.
Okay, so we had the 2019. We will now have a 2022 vote. Walk me through the future, because as a board, we're always thinking not just this. Okay, what comes next, and then what's our future plan? Because I don't know that we could keep asking our community for this much money every 3 years.
So it's a strategic plan. That's the board's expectations to make sure that within that strategic plan that there's a facilities plan embedded in it. Phase one is occurring, as Kevin Arletta was talking about, and we've been talking about in phase one. Now phase two is coming up, as we've been discussing, for December 2022. If you look on this timeline here, the expectation is that we continue to use our building condition survey to prioritize our building needs. You'll see multiple project submissions that need to be considered. If you go and begin with the end in mind in 2030, right, you'll see potential 2025 scope. And within that scope, you see number one on there is elementary schools. You'll see district office moving to Minerva DeLand, so selling district office. Pool addition here at the high school, because you can't do it all in one shot with building aid coming off and being able to take on more debt. That could be more reasonable, and more building condition survey as we prioritize that document. So you could see that will be another capital project, right? As we continue to move along, though, we're hoping to get more steady and predictable, timing it with our aid and our loan ratios, so it's a less of an impact. So Matt Stevens, if you want to talk a little bit more about the benefit of going beyond a third one and getting a consistent approach.
Yep. I don't know if I have a ton to add, but just kind of looking at this piece here with a 25 vote allows us some time to save some additional capital reserve money up to help take care of any unaidable work that would take place. There's always going to be a portion of work that's unaided due to aid ratios. We have an 80% building aid ratio, so there's always 20% of the work that's unaided, and there also could be other work within a project that's over allowances that could be unaided. So we're always trying to see how much money we can have in reserves that would help to reduce the overall impact over the course of the years. As we develop capital projects, we also have to keep in mind the allowance that the state provides each of our buildings for building aid, and it's on a rolling clock, meaning it's a 5-year rolling clock. So work that's approved in, we'll say this year, that money or aid isn't freed back until year 6. So those are monies we have to keep in mind as we are planning capital projects to be able to be sure that we're maximizing the aid as well across our buildings. So trying to develop a longer range plan helps us manage the debt fall off over the years. Reconstruction work is aided and paid for over 15 years. So by the time this debt falls off, it'll be 15 to 18 years out, because the debt doesn't come on immediately after a project is approved. So it is a couple of years before we go to long-term debt. Those are all factors that we take into consideration when we are planning capital construction projects over the years of trying to maximize the debt, look at our building aid, maximize the building aid, take consideration our debt retirement, and our capital reserve monies over the years.
Well, I very much appreciate the thoughtfulness of the different phase projects, the fiscal responsibility, getting our kids the best facilities, but also maintaining our investment in our buildings. I mean, they're huge taxpayer investments that we're putting forward and keeping them current.
And that's the goal is, we're going through and revamping, replacing, and as you move along, it doesn't become that, and so that's when you see less of that bump of those numbers that, that we're talking about right now. Speaking of numbers, I think that's a segue. We've broken them out in a couple different ways.
So this slide is an overall summary of the work taking place in each building. Obviously, you can see the high school has the largest construction dollars assigned to it due to the priority of moving Minerva DeLand into Fairport High School. The other buildings, you can see the dollars aligned there with the aforementioned areas of construction I discussed earlier. Overall construction, a little over $47.5 million. And then we have to build into every budget our construction contingency for unforeseen circumstances, escalation, any of those pieces by the time we go out to bid for a project. And then incidental budget, which is our architect, engineering, insurance, legal fees, borrowing fees, all of those pieces that go into the capital project budget for a total budget of $62.25 million. And jumping to the next slide, here's the breakdown and how that applies to the overall tax impact. I'll start with the end and say that the overall impact on a $200,000 home is $59 per year. That is on for 15 years as the project is aided and paid for. How'd we get there? The project value, the overall not to exceed referendum would be $62.25 million. Maximizing, as Mr. Zuber mentioned earlier, that we've been working hard to have capital reserve dollars available because we knew this project was going to have some unaided portions of work. So With that, we're proposing to assign $19.2 million of our capital reserves to decrease the overall borrowing for this project down to $43 million. And then just running across, you can see the total debt after interest of $55.5 million, and then our state building aid coming back of $39.8 million for a net local share of $15.7 million over the 15 years. Broken down about $1 million a year. Again, that's $59 per year on a $200,000 home for the 15 years.
Don't think I've had as much appreciation in the past for the challenge of creating a budget for construction when you know the SCD process and others is 2 years before things are really shovel ready. And now we see how quickly inflation can impact, although we hadn't experienced that for decades. It's okay, are we appropriately planning for the costs of what it could be? No crystal balls for the next 2 years, right? Of where inflation will go, how much calmer it might be. We hope it will calm down quite a bit, but regardless, it's a interesting challenge. And then that impacts our borrowing costs, right? Because rates are up too to borrow dollars, which takes away from things we can do out on the buildings because we have to dedicate it to the cost of interest.
So I think that's why the bidding process is so important, and it gives us the extent to which we can take into consideration if the bidding process works in our favor. And if it doesn't, that also limits our ability to the extent of what we could, manage. For example, there's been many questions about air conditioning, right? We've been hearing them loud and clear. Wherever we can put air in, we try to do that as part of the project. Again, depending on bids have been favorable, so that frees up more opportunities to make some adjustments to fulfill a community need. If you look at this project that we're currently in, there is air conditioning in the science classrooms. There's going to be air conditioning in the cafeteria, places where they weren't there before, along with the gymnasium. So wherever the team could, maximize and take advantage of a good bid climate, we will be looking to do that here as well. Library will be air conditioned, right? It already is, but efficiencies will be made to the HVA system. And I think this is something that we talked about, if we can't get to an area, how can you get ready, prep it? So if we're fortunate enough to continue along, prep it. So like I say, it's just connect the dots in the next phases. So all those things are taken into consideration. Air conditioning was a big ask.
Other questions for this, or ready to move on to?
Mr. Forsgren, if I could jump in, one of the pieces we talked about in this category before jumping to letter B, we have a representative from Labella here to give a quick summary of the seeker process for the project before we jump into letter B itself. We have Alex Vitolano, if that's okay.
Yep,
that's great.
Great timing.
Perfect. It's funny what you were doing. You're just get to the
Let's
point.
move along. So this
Good work, Mr. Stevens. Thanks.
Is the green light on?
Oh, there we go. Hello, I'm Alex, here to talk about exciting seeker. I'll try to keep it brief. I have already prepared, and as you've hopefully seen, the part 2 and 3 of the environmental assessment form, following the part 1 from last month. So what the part 2 and 3 of the environmental assessment form does is kind of take a look at the identified potential environmental impacts and actually assesses them to determine whether or not we can anticipate, a small impact or a moderate to large impact. All of these responses were created using the DEC workbook guidance for seekers, so it takes a lot of the guessing work out. So a lot of things are pretty cut and dry. I'll kind of take a skim, I guess, through the part 3. It's the part 3 narrative attachment, where I identify various potential environmental impacts. They're all small in nature, according to the seeker guidance. The first one, which is fairly obvious, I guess, would be impact on land. Obviously, there's a lot of site work involved with the proposed project at the high school campus. Several of the items discussed in the impacts on land section touch on just slopes on the property, the multiple phases that the project will have. It's not all going to be constructed in a 12-month period. And then lastly, given the amount of ground disturbing activity, there's obviously there's a potential for increased erosion when you're dealing with that much site work. We have approximately 24 acres of ground disturbance. Now, some of that is, temporary in nature, and those areas will be reseeded. But because of the amount of ground disturbance, there will be a small impact on land. However, it will be temporary. I have written down here that the project, as they all do, will comply with the DEC requirements. With a SWIP will be prepared, and a SPD's, a general permit from the DEC, will also be obtained. That's for the stormwater discharges on the site. Overall, based on these various kind of mitigation measures and compliance with DEC regulations, the overall impact on land that the project will have is anticipated to be small. Does anyone have any questions on the land section? It's all written out. I don't know how detailed you want me to get, but the next one is impact on surface water. There are some wetlands that were identified by the DEC in close proximity to the high school campus. However, they are not located within the actual project areas, the areas that will be disturbed. So we're not anticipating needing any type of wetland permit from the DEC based on what we know right now. Another thing to mention is the other campuses involved in the project were also screened for any potential impacts on surface water. But because the site work is really focused at the high school, any other campuses that might have potential wetlands or streams on site, we're not anticipating any impact on. Based on that, we've stated that no significant adverse impacts are anticipated on surface waters such as wetlands as a result of the project. That kind of ties into flooding. That was another small impact we identified. The project at the high school will increase the overall amount of impervious surface on the campus. That will be as a result of the STEAM addition, additional parking areas and items like that, sidewalks. Any stormwater runoff created will be managed on site according to all DEC requirements. Based on that, we have not identified any significant impacts. And then another item was a small impact on plants and animals. The DEC does flag the town of Perrington and the village of Fairport for potentially containing the northern long-eared bat, which is a protected species. However, there are no known sightings of said bats on any of the campuses that the DEC is aware of. Based on that, and there were no other species identified, so we're not anticipating any issues or impacts on potential threatened or endangered species on the site, on any of the project sites, any of the campuses. We also did identify that there were several state historic sites that were listed as being in close proximity to several of the campuses. None of the campuses themselves, though, contain any structures that are listed with the State Historic Preservation Office. So there's no, we're not anticipating any impacts on historic structures or archaeologically sensitive land. There's also the last remaining couple items are just one is impacts on energy. I mean, overall, we are adding at the high school the STEAM edition, which will increase energy demand minimally in the grand scheme of how large the school is currently. There's no new substation or any upgrades to the existing substation in the area that would be required. Therefore, we're not anticipating any significant impacts on energy use. Another item is noise, odor, and light. Obviously, with any construction project, there will be temporary intermittent increase in noise levels, potentially odor from construction activities and vehicles, and then as well as light. The project at the high school does involve adding some new site lighting for safety purposes for the parking lot areas and the sidewalks and walkways in between the parking lots and buildings. Those are pretty standard. The light fixtures are not anticipated to result in any light shine onto nearby properties other than what's typical of the existing campus. They're not in close proximity to residential homes. And then lastly, impact on human health. The DEC seeker forms require you to discuss impact on human health if your project site is in certain proximity to schools, hospitals, daycares, centers, such items like that. Obviously, the project sites are schools, so they are within 1,500 feet of a school. Overall, the anticipated impact on human health is a positive as a result of the various scope items. So we're not anticipating any adverse impacts on human health as a result. One thing that did get flagged by the DEC were some DEC spills that were identified at various campuses. Those have all been closed out by the DEC, so there are no open spill cases or open remediation site listings for any of the campuses, so we're not anticipating any significant adverse impacts on human health either. So that was my spiel of the part 3. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
On this, I guess my mind went forward to when you talk about the energy usage for when we upgrade for electric buses.
Mhm.
That section might be much bigger.
Yes, I think that would be a lot different.
Yes, but okay, we'll deal with that at that time.
Sounds good.
Thank you for the details.
Thank
Anybody else
you.
have questions?
Work on some bat houses.
Bat houses.
Bat houses are at
Okay.
Mhm.
So related to that, then that does bring us to 9B to adopt the resolution for the seeker resolution, essentially, that's there in the public content area and that was just reviewed. Motion to adopt? Mary Caitlin first, Brian second. Further questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? No, hearing none. 7-0. And then we have these grouped generally about the same, a resolution calling for a special vote on December 13th for our capital improvement project phase 2. Motion to adopt.
So moved.
Jan, thank you. Erica, second. Questions or comments? All in favor? 7-0, December 13th it is. Multiple audit sections here, as well leading us into the budget. So we have claims audit reports from June through August. A motion to approve the claims audit reports. Mary Caitlin first, Marty second. Questions or comments about those? All in favor? Great, thank you all.
Thanks.
7-0, financial audit. This is what Tom Subert went over earlier in E and F, but they have two separate motions. So to accept the basic financial statements, motion to accept. Marty, Erica second. Comments? No, all in favor?
Aye.
No opposed, 7-0. And then the management letter, motion to approve or accept the letter. Erica, thank you. Second, Jan, questions or comments about the letter? All in favor? No opposed, 7-0. Budget calendar, yes, we are already into that, I know. But a motion to accept the budget calendar, very closely aligned to last year. Mary Caitlin, thank you. Brian, second. Questions, comments about the calendar? There are some TBDs, just note those in terms of leaving open for community discussions, but we'll get those a little closer. All in favor? No opposed, 7-0. And then budget goals, these were drafted in the Audit Finance Committee just recently and given to you for review and proposal, even some editing if you deem, but just for discussion. Do we have to, weren't we gonna possibly approve? If there's no big changes, we can approve these tonight, but we'll need a motion to do that. So right now, I guess just a discussion, right, on the goals. It seemed prudent to add the one thing we haven't necessarily had, it's always in there, the background, but maintaining our bond rating, right, with the fiscal challenges that we'll likely experience some from the state, right? The retirement system rates are set by the state. With us being in a bear market, that will impact our retirement contributions. What?
You just used bear market just so fluidly in conversation there.
He's been waiting for years to do
That
it.
was his moment.
Bond rating,
The
he's
moment
in
has
his
arrived.
glory right here.
I
would-
make a motion to
I would just
approve these. Okay.
No, I'll second that. But just as we communicate with the public on it, I think the goals look great. I think the long-term fiscal sustainability could be just translated a little bit better so that people who aren't in finance or aren't, Peter, have a better understanding of why they're important. They clearly are. Not saying they're not, but just so that, that translation from district speak to non-district speak.
I think, yes, and I think, as we talk about, it's not a bright spot, but it is a focus area of, sharing, I think those three bullets underneath the fiscal sustainability piece, we can definitely develop that into very clear highlights. I appreciate that feedback.
That's a good point. Part of it's to minimize, I had mentioned earlier, minimize any interest that we pay, right? So we want to keep a good rating, but that's essentially the goal, is keep us in as high a rating as we can so that we get the lowest interest rate and allow us to do more with the money into the facilities.
But as Brett always says, a budget tells a story, and I love that equitable access is a budget goal and that how it relates to that. I think that's just really nice, tying the budget to the work we do and the work we want to do.
That's embedded in the strategic plan. Thanks to Dr. T and team. That's that was really, it fell off the pages. So we were excited to put that on there. So without a doubt.
So we did have a motion. It was a little quiet there, but Mary Kelly, you made a motion, right? And-
I make a motion that we adopt the budget goals tonight.
Okay, and seconded by Brian.
Yeah.
Questions or comments, or no? All in favor? Okay, those are our budget goals for this budget season, and we have the budget calendar. Second reads, our policy committee continues to be very busy, a lot of second reads. But we did have these first reads on the meeting last month. I missed that as first reads, but motion to approve the second reading of those policies. Erica, thank you. Second, Mary Caitlin. Questions or comments about these policies? All right, all in favor? No opposed, 7-0. We have a settlement agreement between us. The details are in the executive content in this case, for you to have perused beforehand. A motion to accept or approve the agreement relating to the 2015, right? 2015 capital project? Yes? 2016. Erica, thank you. Marty, second. Questions or comments? No, nobody wants to say it leaves a bad taste in our mouth, but it's better financially overall? Or- Okay, I didn't say that. All in favor? Potentially, right. Any opposed? One opposed? 6-1. Okay. Field trip requests, and I love how long this list is getting as we have really gone back, but a motion to accept or approve all the field trip requests that have come to us. Ryan, thank you. Second, Mary Caitlin, second. Questions or comments about these?
Just a quick one. I mean, it's hard. I hate singling one out because these are all amazing. But I love the Martha Brown raking veterans leaves on Veterans Day. I know Dave Dunn, that was his baby for a lot of years, and the kids loved it as much as the veterans. My daughter did it, and she loved it, and I'm so happy that Buddy Nyhoff is picking that up and carrying that on. That's amazing.
Yes.
Does Buddy and I have sleep? No. It's everything.
And look at the variety though, right? You don't have to go through all of them. Incredible variety of clubs, field trips, opportunities for our students. Again, you know, the variety of needs and desires, let kids explore what they want and be able to determine what they'll go on to after they leave us. So.
Leaves a sweet taste in my mouth.
Love that. Yes, it is. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, 7-0. Extra classroom activities. Motion to approve the following extra classroom activities at the high school and Martha Brown. Erica, thank you. Second was Jan. Okay. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
7-0. And we have a request for an incomplete girls alpine ski team. A motion to approve the incomplete team. Ryan, thank you. Second, Joyce. Questions, comments?
Always happy that we can work together. Yes.
Yeah, even in competition, right? To help out, especially smaller school districts or smaller teams. Great, all in favor? Any opposed? No, none, 7-0. Approving athletic fundraisers for this fall season. Motion to approve the fundraisers.
So moved.
Erica, thank you. Second, Mary Caitlin. Questions or comments?
I just really love how these are laid out. It just makes it very cohesive. I know a problem could be that you have a lot of overlapping fundraisers happening at the same times with the same things. And I feel like the high school and athletics departments are being very thoughtful in what we're asking of people.
Thank you. It's intentional, and I'll pass that on. I know they'll appreciate that.
Yes. But challenging because
Yes.
a lot of sports, a lot
Yeah,
of
I mean,
youth.
it's an imperfect process, but
Right.
yes.
All in favor? No opposed, 7-0. And this one, able to slip in here, the motion, since we've approved the vote on the 13th, December 13th, we have.
We have athletics and then we have.
Oh, I did. I saw fundraiser. I'm sorry. Thank you. School fundraisers. I apologize. Motion to approve the school fundraisers, not related to athletics. Brian? Second. Caitlin, second. Questions, comments there? All in favor? 7-0. And then finally, the vote personnel already lined up. Thank you, Pam, for December 13th.
And thank you to all the people who are volunteering their time to do this.
Yes.
They do have long days on our vote days. Thank you for pointing that out.
Sure.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
Erica, Jan, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, we are at 10. Board comments, any additional comments people would like to make? Open up the.
Just really quick, and I wish more people had stayed. But to anyone watching online, I do just want to say on the record to thank you to all of our incredible librarians, the work they do. You have our support, you have our thanks, and we're behind you.
Thank you. That's true. Speaks for us. Others?
I think same. I just also want to say a thank you to all the administrators and staff and teachers, PTAs, students that came out tonight. They are why we do this work. And as a mom and seeing several of our children, I'll be honest, here or there, I just think it reminds us not only why we do it, but we're doing it for all of these kids. And, you know, again, it's why we do it. But thank you. That was it just fills your heart and keeps you excited and engaged and motivated. So for all those who gave their evenings, we know evening time is sparse. So thank you to all those who came.
And it's so much more meaningful that children, the students come here to do this. It's I mean, could they be more adorable?
No.
Yeah, never seen
I
it.
know.
They did, but well-spoken, those as they get older, they see their development from where they were at young ages to, you know, so.
Yeah.
Sarah,
lovely. I did-
even though not part of that, I just think she's the epitome of that as she comes and speaks well and reports on it.
Yes.
I don't know. I felt like I was blinking into the future, seeing Ellie, and then seeing Katie and Ellie, and then Natalie, and it was like, oh man, I'm just.
And before you know it.
I know. I feel old.
Not gonna go there? Okay, no, I'm past you. Other comments? Thank you all for your time too. I'll express that. It's always a joy to work with you. So that brings us, we do have a topic for executive session. Need a motion to enter into executive session?
Will we be making any decisions in executive?
We will not. So we will adjourn or come back into open session, then immediately adjourn.
Okay. So moved.
Brian, thank you.
Second.
Mary Caitlin, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you for those who stayed, made it through the night.
Thank you.
9 o'clock.
Ellen, you win a prize.